That's my Tesla. If you notice, it's charging. You might be like, Levi, why are you in the break room at a dairy farm? I've got a story for you. Last night, after a banger night of Uber driving, I ended up trying to come home. But it was a blizzard, and the interstate was closed. So I had to stop at a supercharger. They said, Tesla said, I'd arrive at the supercharger with 10-15% battery. But remember, it's a blizzard. And here's what happens. When it's a blizzard, they don't plow the roads. So the battery performs worse when it's cold, and the wheels are spinning. So with 10 miles to go, it said I had about 20 miles of range. And about 7 miles to go to the supercharger, I had about 10 miles of range. And at 3 miles to go to the supercharger, I had 2 miles of range. So I pulled over in the middle of the night at this dairy farm. And I arrive with no battery. And here's where the story begins. Okay, so no one at the farm spoke any English. We did use Google Translate, and that kind of worked. But when the guy came back, he had an extension cord, and I tried to explain, hey, I need an outlet. So after he understood, we moved my Tesla right next to an outlet. But that's when I realized I didn't have my charging cable with me. I must have taken it out of my car when I was cleaning it. I don't know. I've never really used it because I've always had chargers. So it's like 4:30 in the morning, and I decide to call my wife and explain everything to her. And I asked her to bring the cable out to me. But this is when she reminded me that we had just taken our snow tires off our Prius, like, I don't know, 2 days ago. And she doesn't like driving in the snow anyway, so there's literally no way for her to come and get me with the roads not being plowed. She's not going to bring the cable. That's just not happening. So this is my problem. The Tesla right here, need to put it connected to that. That's it. That's my problem. And I don't have a cable. So I'm here at this farm, just hanging out, just waiting. My next option is to call a tow truck. I call my insurance company and I explain the situation, and they said, sure, no problem. But remember, it was a blizzard. The interstate was closed. There were cars wrecked all over. And the insurance person was like, a tow truck will probably come, but it may not come till later that afternoon, maybe even the next day, like Sunday night. And so it could be like 24 hours for me to get a tow. So that wasn't happening. So I'm an Uber driver, right? I think maybe I'll just have a car come get me, take me to my house and do a round trip and go back. I'll tip the driver great because I'm a big tipper. But then I looked at the map and there were surges going on in Syracuse just a few miles away. There's no way a driver was going to come down and pick me up. I even saw the trip because I signed into both apps on Lyft, and Lyft was charging me $60, and Lyft was saying, hey, it's a $30 fare. So there's no way I was going to get a ride with Uber or Lyft, at least not at that time. So after talking with my wife again, we decide that it's probably best for my neighbor who has a truck to just bring the cable to me after the sun comes up. Fair enough. So I just had to wait till the sun came up. And by then, the milk truck drivers had shown up. They've come to pick up their load of milk, and take it to the processing plant. And gosh, they gave me such a hard time. Jokes, stuff like, Bob, does your Ford truck ever run out of electricity? And, And I took it. I took it like a man because here I am, this guy, and they had labeled me the green, you know, EV, tree hugging liberal Democrat. Fair enough. Around 9 a.m., the snow had stopped, and I felt like it was a good time to go ahead and call my neighbor to see if he could come and get me. And he said he'd be out there as soon as he can, but that he had to shovel his truck out, and it's going to take at least an hour or so to drive to me. The roads are still really bad, probably. Just me. About that same time, the farm owner showed up into the break room, and he was kind of curious, like, what are you doing here? And I explained the situation. He definitely seemed perturbed at me, but he didn't kick me out. He just said whatever, and he left. And there's more to that. You gotta wait for it. At about 10:30, my neighbor shows up with the charging cable, a shovel, and he even brought me some food for my wife, and he even gave me his boots because he saw that my feet were sopping wet from getting out in the snow. I immediately plug the car in, and then I go back to waiting. I wait for 2 more hours. And after 2 hours, it's like 12:30, the car is still at 0% with 0 miles of range. Remember, a Tesla battery, if it's cold, just doesn't really charge that well. And I'm charging at a 110 outlet. Let's talk about how Tesla chargers work. Everyone's familiar with the Tesla superchargers. They're great. They're a little expensive, but they're fast. 30, 40 minutes. You can fully charge your car almost with no matter what the weather is. They're great. The next level of charger would be the level 2 chargers. And I have one of those at my house. It takes 4 to 6 to 8 hours to charge, depending upon a couple of things. And you typically charge at night, and it's the best because it's the cheapest electricity that you can get. And so every morning I wake up with a fully charged battery. The level 1 chargers, that's the cable that I brought to charge my car. That's like a 110 outlet, and that takes forever to charge a car. It could take like 3 days to fully charge a big Tesla battery. So there was no way my Tesla was going to charge really fast to get the safe distance I needed, the 3 miles where the superchargers were from that farm. So I'd been at this farm for like 8 hours, and I feel like I probably need another good 4 hours to make sure I have enough charge to safely get that 3 miles. By 2:30 p.m., it's been 10 hours. I had roughly 1% range and 6 miles. So there you go. We're getting somewhere. But I just didn't feel comfortable enough to leave. At 3:15, that's when the farmer showed back up again. The farm owner, he wasn't happy. He was like very upset. He's like, "You're still here?" And I tried explaining to him that I really wanted to leave. I just needed to make sure that the car was charged. And I tried every other option. I couldn't get a tow truck. I didn't want to leave the car there in his possession. I really wanted to go. I just didn't feel good about it. And that's when he got irate. He was like, "You're trespassing." And I told him, I said, "Well, I told the people that worked here what was going on." And he was like, "You shouldn't talk to the Guatemalans. You talk to me." And I feel like I did talk to him. He was just really mean and rude. So I left. I was like, "That's it. Fine. If you want me out of here, I'll leave no matter what." So I went to go clean my car off. And at about that time, when I'm cleaning the car off, one of the workers showed up with a phone, and he was like, "Hey, my boss wants to talk to you."
I'm sorry, I'm awfully sorry.
Yeah.
Would you mind reminding me your name?
Levi,
Levi.
like the blue jeans. Be well.
Okay.
Take care. My boss, you want to talk to? Which one? My boss? Oh, yeah. Hello. She said, "Hey, you were rude to my husband. We're calling the cops on you." And it's like, where is this story going? I tried to explain to her, like, I needed help. I didn't have any options. I need help. And they were just being mean to me. And I feel like if I had shown up as a female with maybe a gas car, they might have treated me differently. The Guatemalan workers were fantastic. They were really nice. One of them even tried to offer me their tacos that they had for lunch.
So I grabbed $50 out of my wallet. I gave it to one of the Guatemalans. I thanked them for all of their time and effort. And I left. And I drove about 10 miles an hour. I didn't turn anything on in the car, not the radio, not the defroster, nothing. I had barely just enough. And I arrived at the supercharger with 0% battery. But the story's not over. I get to the supercharger and I couldn't plug. It just wouldn't work. The supercharger would not connect to my car. It was kind of going in there, but it wasn't charging it. I don't understand. And I think it had something to do with the ice. So I looked, the gas station had a car wash. And even though I had 0% battery, I just took a chance. I drove the car over to the car wash. I went through the car wash. I figured the hot water and steam would melt that little section, maybe heat the battery just a little bit. And that worked. That worked. The car was able to charge, and my ordeal was over. All right. Let me conclude with some of my lessons learned. Number one, never estimate your Tesla to arrive at 20% or less than 20% at a charger. Tesla's great. When you put in destinations, it'll tell you how much battery is remaining when you arrive at that place. But it just never actually delivers on that exact number. So if you say you're going to arrive at 20%, typically you might arrive with only 15% battery. So you don't want to arrive with less than 20%. If the weather's bad, i.e. if it's cold, you should never really let your battery get below 50%. Find charging and always keep it charged at 50% or more. Keep your charging cables with you at all times. You're never going to know when you need them. I doubt I'll ever need that charging cable again, but it's kind of like a spare tire. Just keep it with you. Number 4, don't take your snow tires off in upstate New York until like June or July, or at least May, because as soon as you take your snow tires off, it's going to snow. And the final thing, never stop with your Tesla at a farm and ask for help, or maybe at least that farm. I hope you're safe. I hope you enjoy the story and learn something from my ordeal. Be well, be safe.